All right, welcome back to the morning show. Now, the electronic toll collection says it has applied to the courts for about 1,400 default judgments against road users who have failed to pay their etoll fees and have ignored court summons to settle their accounts. Now, SANRAL has issued a final warning to Gauteng road users to pay their etolls debts or face being dragged to court. At least 25 other etoll defaulters have also been given default judgments in SANRAL's latest ploy to recoup billions of rand owed in etolls. Now, in studio, we're joined by CEO of Electronic Toll Collection, Connie Vermaak, who, of course, is involved in the management and collection of etolls on behalf of SANRAL. Thank you so much for coming through, Connie.
Good morning, Clement, and thank you for having me.
Let's talk about blacklisting these motorists. Yes. What does it tell us about SANRAL? Is it that desperate? Is it because people are simply not paying up and that's why you're resorting to this process?
No, I think ETC has been in the public domain and space in the last year saying that summonses will be issued. Since my last year, we've been issuing about between 2,000 and 4,000 summonses per month through the courts. It is not, the intent is not to blacklist a motorist. It is just an automatic result of a default judgment. So what we would request our road users to do is not to ignore summonses that are issued. A summons that you ignore normally ends up in a default judgment, and that automatically results in a blacklisting. It's not a strategy or a ploy to blacklist people. This is merely process that we need to follow in order to get our road users to start complying. Obviously, it's quite a negative way of dealing with the matter, and we would rather want our road users to start complying, and a lot of our research actually shows that a lot of our road users do want to comply. It's just that the historic debt seems to be a big issue for them.
So what are you doing then to try and address that historic debt so that they can start paying?
Well, I think the first thing is that we do need to be more transparent and clear around communication. People do believe that the etoll account on a monthly basis is exorbitant, but there's actually a cap in place. So for a registered road user, the cap is about 277 Rand per month, and that allows you to travel unlimited on the network itself. I think that's the first thing, is for road users to become registered. Secondly, we have made recommendations to SANRAL and to government on how to deal with the historic debt. And we hope that in this regard that the government will listen to us and hopefully come up with some kind of solution.
But that same government, Connie, is sending confusing messages. I mean, you've got a Minister of Finance saying, let's pay the etolls, and you've got the government in Gauteng through the ANC chairperson, or the ANC chairperson in Gauteng, who is also premier in this province, saying, well, we are against this system. So surely when you have these confusing messages from the ANC and government, you're not really going to get people to say, oh, let me actually go and start paying, when government and the ANC are saying pay, the other says don't.
Yeah, obviously, I think for me to comment on the political disparities between the local government and national government, I think it's not my place. What I can say is that consistently, National Executive has stated that etolls are here to stay. Consistently, every single transport minister in the last 2 years have stated that. And as well as the finance minister. So it is very clear. And recently, Dr. Bladen Samande actually transferred 5.9 billion into SANRAL's tolling account. So we really believe that government has been consistent. The National Executive have been consistent around tolling is here to stay. It is part of the user pay principle. That's an accepted norm in South Africa. And I think road users have come to realize that it will not go away.
Well, road users, I can tell you, are very confused, because even with Bladen Zimande's transport minister will come to you and say, this is the money. And then when he is the SACP leader, will say, this is unaffordable, we don't support it. But let's speak about the 15,000 summonses that have been sent to court in relation to the etoll users who have not settled their accounts. Isn't that a sign, though, that people are still rejecting this, even though you say your research shows that people are sort of prepared to pay, they're just worried about the historic debt?
Yeah, I think what people believe is that they have to settle the historic debt before they can become compliant, which is not the case. Road users can become compliant immediately, and that allows them to get the benefit of the 277 Rand a month cap. And separate to that, they can engage with government, SANROL or ETC to try and find a solution for historic debt. So what I can also say is that ETC nor SANROL have actually initiated legal action against people that have historic debt but are compliant users today. So we are not trying to alienate our compliant road users today, and my best advice would be for people to become compliant today. The historic debt that needs to be paid, I am sure and confident that we will find a solution for that.
So people are making an argument that the lawfulness of etolls is still being challenged in court, and they're saying, why obtain default judgments then when there's this court process that is currently underway? Because you say when you obtain those default judgments, automatically you get blacklisted, right? So why then can't we wait for this process of challenging the lawfulness of etolls to be concluded first before we continue with that process?
Well, first of all, the Constitutional Court already ruled on the lawfulness of etolls. So we have case law in South Africa right now stipulating and defining that the etoll process was transparent, that there was enough public engagement, and that in fact it is lawful. And as a result of that, we are able to proceed with the legal action. So, we have OTA that has initiated legal action against SANROL around some arguments around lawfulness and how the etoll system is managed. Right now, this case is being in the process of preparation to court, and there's a discovery process happening between parties as we speak.
Have you always supported etolls?
Well, that I think is a good question. I didn't initially support it, and I would say, quite frankly, you know, what I've seen and what I've experienced myself is that I think South African citizens at a point in time have been ignorant, and I was totally ignorant. I became compliant once I joined ETC because I just have a view that you can't work for a company and not support it. But then I really became intrigued by the technology and how actually fantastic the system is and how we can use it. And I really, I think the negative propaganda and the negative media coverage that we've seen has proven to be untrue. So I think what I've seen is a South African company with 1,200 employees, people that's got great new skills and people that are managing a fantastic system.
Look, thank you so much for your time. Connie Vermaak is, of course, the CEO of Electronic Toll Collection.